there to make you a better person, to give you the skills to take your life and income to the next level. It's important. Once you understand that, when you hit those roadblocks, those bumps in the road, it's not going to affect you as much. Okay, number 2, one of the reasons we're here is persuasion. So we have self-persuasion. We call it the success blueprint. These are the 4 quadrants. Sales mastery and understanding human psychology. Persuasion. Now here's the thing, when you're talking to people, are you a guest or a pest? It doesn't matter what you think. It's what they think. And that's what we find with people is they think, oh, people like me. They don't. They've got the front door locked, and sometimes you have to go to the side door sometimes. But are you a guest or a pest? So if we go to the proverbial old-style salesperson. Now, there's a one-to-one relationship like we talked about with your income and your persuasion skills, and less than 1% really know how to persuade and influence, all the skills of persuasion. Because this is what we're finding as we're doing research, is that most people have 3 to 4 persuasion techniques they use over and over again. Top producers have about 7 to 8, and we've identified over 100. So very few people have taken the time to study human nature, to study persuasion. Because most of persuasion, and here's the thing that's really going to set us apart today, 95% of all persuasion involves a subconscious trigger. It just feels right. I just trust the person. And many of the people you talk to will lie to you. Have you noticed that? They'll make things up. They don't want to hurt your feelings. And many of you are guilty of the same thing. You go to a furniture store, they push a little too hard, you get that little feeling inside, you're a little uncomfortable, and what do? Just looking. Or you lie, you leave, talk to a spouse, I'll come back later. And when we talk about the psychology of objections, you have to understand that almost 70% of the time when people say, I can't afford it, they're lying to you. They have learned that's an easy way to get rid of you. And then you've been learned how to handle that objection. Oh, really? Compared to what? Yeah? Or you have these little objections. So you're solving the wrong objection most of the time. And that's where the pain really starts. And that's when people start getting upset. Less than 1%. And what we want to do is get people to beg for your product, to want your product. Just like, well, I use the word magnetic. You're attracting metal filings. You know, you're attracting people to you. That's what you're looking for. And we want to call it the keys of the piano persuasion. As I mentioned before, most people are only using a few of the keys. They're playing chopsticks on the piano persuasion. What we want to do is get you to play Mozart. The more tools you have, the more successful you're going to be. That's just what it comes down to. The more tools you have, the more successful you're going to be. How many of you own a post hole digger? I see your hands. Anybody? A few of you? How often do you use it? Probably just the first time you bought it, right? But when you needed it, you needed it. And when you need it again. So some of these tools you only might be using 2 or 3 times a year, but if that seals the deal, is it worth it? It is, and some people require specialized tools. So as you look at the piano persuasion today, we'll be talking about dissonance, verbal packaging, trust, connectivity. The reality is, you look at the whole world of persuasion, there's a lot of different tools that we want to get into your toolbox to make sure that you're successful. More tools equals more success. So let's go into some definitions. Persuasion. Persuasion is what you do when you say. The techniques you use. Persuasion is what you do when you say. That's what we're talking about in this section, is persuasion. The techniques. Then there's influence. Now, influence is a higher form of persuasion. Influence is who you are, your trust, your credibility, your passion. Is there anybody in your life right now that would ask you for $1,000, you would give it to them, no questions asked? Is there? You see your hand. Is there? Okay, there is. That's influence. You don't need a fact, a figure. You've developed enough influence and trust that they say, okay. It's a higher form of persuasion. The next is negotiation, which is actually a lower form of persuasion. Negotiation techniques are important, but it's a lower form because with persuasion and influence, you're bringing them to your point of view. Negotiation, you're fighting it out and you're kind of meeting in the middle. That's what negotiation is. And then there's power. Is power good or bad? Yes. Is gravity good or bad? Both. It depends if you're walking or falling out of a tree. And that's what these persuasion, and when I teach you these skills of persuasion, they can be used for good or bad. I mean, persuasion is used to get children on drugs, and it's used to get them off drugs, to keep them off drugs. I mean, they're neutral, just like gravity, and that's why it's important to use them for good.